Good morning and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment hearings for Rural Panel 3. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consent to sever land. Our hearings are now in person at Ben Franklin Place, 101 Centrepoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for our registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public. My name is Martin Vervoort. I'll be chairing today's hearings and you can address me by my name or as chair. With me today are my fellow panel members, Gary Duncan to my right, Jocelyn Chandler and Beth Henderson, who are appearing remotely. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support of or in opposition to each of the applications. Today we'll hear any oral submissions relating to the applications. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath today that they fulfilled the sign posting requirements. Otherwise, we may have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. I believe we have all of the declarations.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The panel may also ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make a final comment in reply. Please address your comments to the chair, starting with your name and spelling if it is necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all the parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy of the decision. Does anyone have any questions today about the procedure we will be following? No questions? Good. All right, we have several applications to hear today, but first we need to deal with some preliminary and procedural matters. Do any members of the panel have any declarations of interest that they wish to put on the record? No declarations of interest. Thank you. We also have to confirm the minutes of the previous hearing of January the 14th. Are there any amendments or changes to the minutes from any members of the panel? No changes? Then the minutes of the meeting of January 14th are approved. Prior to hearing of the applications, we'll deal with any adjournment or withdrawal requests. I believe we have an adjournment request for agenda item number 6 concerning the property at 7725 Llewellyn Road. And I believe the agent on that is C. Mulholland. Do we have anyone here appearing on that today?
Mr. Chair, I do not see the agent either in the room or online. They have agreed to sine die, so that could be done in his absence.
Okay. Are members of the panel agreeable then to adjourning agenda item number 6, sine die? All those in favor? So the matter is adjourned, sine die. So it'll be brought forward on a new date. Next, we can deal with the unopposed applications for which there are no comments or concerns that would prevent the applications from being granted. And I believe we have 4 items on which there are no comments or concerns. Agenda item number 1, number 2, and number 4, and number 5. Does anyone present or online have any comments concerning agenda items 1, 2, 4, or 5? If there are no comments or concerns from
Hello, my name is Arjun Soor. I'm from Novatech. I just had a quick question about, I see 2610B River Road, item 4 is on there. I note as well that item 3 for 2610B River Road is, this is the easement, is a related easement application. Just so I understand, has the committee put both items on the consent agenda today, or is it just item number 4, which is the minor variance and permission application?
Just number 4, because I think there was just a question regarding number 3.
Okay,
from
understood.
one
I
of the
just
members of
wanted,
the panel.
okay, thanks.
Okay. So if that's the case, then no other comments or questions. I would ask the committee to approve agenda items 1, 2, 4, and 5. All those in favor? So those items, those applications are all approved then. And sorry, Mr. Seward, you can come back now. I guess you should have stayed. We can deal with agenda item number 3. And maybe you can just state your full name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, sure. So name is Arjun Soor. And address is 240 Michael Copeland Drive, Suite 200.
Okay. And I think that the committee fully understands the application. I believe there was a question from one of the panel members, Ms. Chandler. You just had a question of the application?
Hear me clearly?
Pardon me?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
So my question is, the site plan that was shown in the variance application indicates that the mantle and a drainage, like a sort of a tile drain feature, run underneath the location of the 1.5 meter easement that's being requested, which means that the adjacent property owner will benefit from the easement to access the water, but it will be over the sewage system of the property. And I want to confirm that you guys have put the thought into this, because my understanding of an easement is that you cannot modify it without the permission of the benefiting easement holder, in which could perhaps inhibit work on the sewage system, which is really, really necessary to service this property. You've got nowhere else to go with that sewage system in the future. So if at some point there is not a good relationship between the two owners, like, have you guys thought this out?
Mr. Chair, if I may assist, it's Murray Chown from Novatech as well.
Yes.
Can you, if you can hear me? Ms. Chandler raises a very good question. I was expecting a slightly different question. We were going to confirm that the access was limited only to pedestrian access to the river and there wouldn't be any vehicular access, but her point about maintenance of the system is worth considering, and I think that we can include a provision in the easement document to allow the owners to interrupt the easement to maintain the system. And I would be fine if the committee was to make that a condition of the approval, that the easement document include provisions for maintenance of the septic system.
Yeah, I don't think it's that unusual that there's works or structures within an easement, and typically when that's the case, the easement document would provide that the easement can be interrupted for those maintenance purposes. So if the committee members are agreeable, we'll add a condition that the easement will require that that it provide the
Mr. Chair, if I can interrupt, perhaps it wouldn't be a condition of approval, but perhaps it would just be clarified in the decision itself that the purpose would be for access, with the owner able to perform maintenance when needed.
okay, yeah, for pedestrian access, I guess is the restriction.
I didn't need it as a condition. It was more for your client's protection that I was concerned. I don't have any problem with the easement. I think that it should be somehow incorporated into the registration of the easement, that will continue to be available to them for those purposes in the future. So however it wants to be included, that's fine.
So we could just include it in the reasons for the decision rather than a condition. So anything else to add, Mr. Chow? That was the only concern.
Nothing else. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Okay. All those in favor then of approving agenda item number 3? So the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our last agenda item is agenda item number 7 concerning the property at 74 Martin Street in Richmond. And I believe the agent on that is Kenneth Bluen. And this matter was adjourned from our previous hearing. And I think the only major issue is the road widening. So if you could just indicate your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Bluen for Foten at 420 O'Connor Street.
Okay. And again, this is an application to subdivide the property into 2 separate parcels. And I don't think there were any concerns other than with the road widening, which we discussed at the last hearing. Originally, it was requested a 13-meter road widening on Martin Street. The planning department has come back or indicated at the previous hearing that they were willing to consider an 11-meter road widening from the center line of Martin Street and 10 meters on Colonel Murray. I don't know if you've had any discussions with planning since then or if there's been a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. Our discussions since the last time, Section 4 of the zoning bylaw was brought up before, saying that no taking of land would impact the potential building envelope. We looked into it and that it doesn't really apply retroactively. Staff proposed a provision in the condition that development within 3 years could be to the original lot line, the setback relating to the original lot line. However, we can't guarantee that there will be any construction within the next 3 years. We're not proposing any at the moment. And the condition continues to constrain the potential development, the development potential and value of the lands. At this point, we're just asking committee to be reasonable, looking at the specific context. It's really hard to envision the street being widened. Although it's technically a collector in Schedule C16, it truly has the character of a local street. It's about 1 kilometer long. It doesn't exactly connect many features. It would be a significant expenditure for the city to expropriate land, to expropriate lands along Martin Street to widen it. And there will be no substantive improvement. There is space existing within the right-of-way on the property that is not built up. There is a line of trees along that property line, pretty much in line with the property line, and maybe about approximately 2 meters, 2 to 3 meters of just grass that could be used for whatever purposes the city has in mind. Yeah, so we appreciate staff's efforts to find a bit of a middle ground, but we still think that the taking of land could result in building setback incongruities and intended pattern of development eventually, and the widening of the street itself, for whatever purposes, faces a lot of constraints. We just don't see it ever happening in the medium to long term. Thank you.
So so what is your proposal then as far as the street widening goes?
We submitted an amended condition, just taking out the widening of the street on Martin Street. We're okay with the Colonel Murray.
Okay.
Yeah. If you'd like more details, we do have more in a presentation that was submitted.
No, I think we understand. I have a question for planning, though. My understanding from the last hearing was that if there was a road widening taken, it wouldn't affect the original setback provisions, but now I'm hearing something different from Mr. Blouin, so maybe planning can clarify that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we had a bit of discussion with the applicant and with our some internal staff from interpretations. It was our interpretation that the original setbacks would apply. However, we were informed that that is not the case. That's more to do with site plan applications and or proposals where there are existing structures or proposed development. So that's where the revised condition came back from.
So in this case, the applicant would be bound by the setback requirements after the road widening.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And then do we have a sense of how that would affect the development? So how far does that push you back then, Mr. Blouin?
The current width of the right of way is about 16 meters. So we're looking at approximately 3 meters taken from the front. The front yard setback in the zoning is 6 meters. A lot of the buildings on the east side of McBean Street, which is where the subject site is, the setbacks are pretty even. They appear to be around 6 to 7 meters. So setting these back to about 9 meters from that original lot line is quite significant.
So you're going to be pushed back about 6 feet, I guess, then from, okay. Members of the panel, questions for the applicant or planning? Ms. Chandler?
I have a question for planning. Well, I have two questions, but the first one is, it's designated a collector. Is there a chance that might change, that it might be demoted given the nature of the street?
Unfortunately, I don't think I can really comment on that at the moment, not being a transportation planner, but there have been some discussions about that. But there's nothing concrete that I can offer, unfortunately.
That would presumably have to be an OP amendment or included in the next version of the official plan, which I think is
that's
a ways
correct.
off. Okay.
Yeah.
With respect to the setback, which really all of this is turning on. So I understood that planning is proposing that they could accommodate a build within 3 years to the original setback. Then after that point, it would become a request for a minor variance. Like there is a solution here, a minor variance request. And if that minor variance would align the front of a new build with the adjacent property owners, it seems a reasonable minor variance for consideration to reduce that front yard setback to accommodate a road widening if it was taken. My concern here is that it's very hard, from my perspective, for the committee to relieve applicants from the city's requirements for road widening because they're a very broad and established condition requested, and that there is a relief available to this, both for the 3-year accommodation and then the minor variance option in the future. So while I agree with I understand and agree with the things the applicant is presenting as to the encumbrances that it imposes, for the same reasons, a minor variance would be a fairly reasonable proposition in the future.
Would the applicant like to respond?
I'm just going to pass it to my colleague here, Bria Aird, also with FOTEN.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Bria Aird. I'm with FOTEN and my address is also 420 O'Connor. I do appreciate that we're in a difficult position for the committee. And I do want to reiterate that staff have been very responsive and have obviously put a lot of thought into this issue. With respect to the ability to reduce the road widening identified in the OP, there are policies in Schedule C16 2.11C. And we do believe that we meet these policies specifically with respect to the incongruity of setbacks and character. So there is an explicit policy there. And again, I appreciate that given that staff aren't able to make a decision right now about the collector status, but I think the indication very much is that this is not a high priority road for widening. It's practically speaking not likely to occur. And while there is an avenue for the future, for the applicant or for future builders in terms of the 3-year grace periods that the revised condition allows or a future minor variance, it is ultimately imposing a burden on the applicant or future developer that doesn't yield a clear public benefit. So in the context of all of that, we reiterate our request, but again, thanks to staff for the work that they have tried to do on this.
Any other comments or questions?
I do have one question for staff, is why they're making this recommendation if that relief is available under that section in the OP.
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
The agent just raised a section in the OP that suggests that there's some variability in terms of the need to impose a setback and that they qualify for that relief underneath. It was C16 2.1.C. And the incongruity with setbacks, and that there is some the OP makes the option not to apply the road widening available, and why staff hasn't considered that or doesn't support that if they have considered it.
So my understanding is that the road winding that's being requested here does not necessarily make development impossible. I don't know if that's maybe the right way of saying it, but it still allows for development to occur, even if the setback does not entirely align with what's existing. So I believe that's primarily why we're still running with what we've requested.
So is the lot size, even with the road widening taken, still meet the zoning requirements?
It does, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So back to the staff, I do actually have a question. Oh, sorry.
Just push your button there.
Sure. Yeah, for the staff, I have a follow-up question there because I didn't hear the answer that I think was looked for, and that is, if you have the capacity to not apply that requirement, what prevents you from applying it? I heard something other than that exact answer.
Right, sorry. So to clarify, we did have consideration for that policy, and that's where the reduced widening requirement we're asking for came from, rather than asking for the full 13 meters from center line for a collector. We're asking just for 11.
So do you have the capacity to not apply it at all?
I unfortunately can't answer that.
We do have Aaron O'Connell on the call.
I think we had a question first from Miss Member Henderson.
Hi, sorry, my question has been asked by member Dutton. So I look forward to hearing what Aaron has to say.
Go ahead, O'Connell.
Just to say that committee member is correct. It is a judgment call on staff's perspective in recommending that condition to the committee. So our folks in transportation did look at the ability to take the road widening. They reduced it slightly based on some discussion with the applicant and the concerns expressed. And it's a recommendation for a condition at this point. Committee also can make whatever call they choose in applying that condition. But there was some consideration from our transportation staff and the burden placed on the applicant.
Any other comments or questions from anyone? Would members of the committee like to reserve on this and have a quick discussion after the public part of the meeting's over? Okay. Alrighty, in that case, we'll reserve our decision on this matter. It will be issued within the next 10 days. You'll be notified in writing. And that concludes the business of the committee today. Thank you very much, everyone.